Welcome back. It's Ezra, Levant, my friend Sheila, Gunn, Reid. We are from the Rebel Media, and we are standing in beautiful downtown Halifax. It is Saturday, and although the conference of the Conservative Party continues, I think last night marked its apogee. The leader, Andrew Scheer, gave a speech that was regarded by many as, well, it wasn't a home run. It was a little bit tepid, and I don't know, I think ideologically unclear, but I think if I had to say, and Sheila, I'd love your view on this, if I had to say what the defining moment at the conference was yesterday, it was when a motion put forward by more than 30 grassroots riding associations to change Andrew Scheer's policy on the dairy cartel, supply management. So more than 30 local riding associations said we got to change that. But that was placed at the absolute bottom of the agenda. There were 26 resolutions to be debated, and they managed to slow walk it and burn up the time and slow things down. So, whoopsies, it never even made it to a vote. I think that was the low point, and then it was punctuated with an exclamation point when Andrew Scheer went to the dairy cartel party and posed for victory-style, slam-dunk-style photos with all those Quebec dairy farmers. You got him! It's like dunking in the face, not just of Maxime Bernier, who's gone, but of these grassroots members. It seemed tone-deaf to me.
I think tone-deaf is actually the wrong word, because tone-deaf would imply that that was sort of an accidental faux pas optics gaffe. I don't think that's what it was at all. I think it was calculated. I think it was a thumb in the eye to that 49% of the party that voted for Maxime Bernier, and at a time when it's pretty clear the party's pretty fractured. Now, like you and I were talking earlier, I don't disagree with a lot of Maxime Bernier's assessment, but I do disagree with his resolution, and I think a lot of party members feel that way, including those 30 some odd grassroots riding associations who brought forward this motion. And yesterday, Andrew Scheer was flaunting the fact that he is owned by the dairy cartel in the party's face, and it's pretty evident there will be no change. Yesterday, the party organized against free market principles. Of all the things for the Conservative Party, that free market party to organize against, it was against the free market.
I mean, it would be one thing if Andrew Scheer and Leeds MPs went to the floor of the party convention and said, people, here's why. Please support the leader. Please, please, please. And then the party spoke. And let's say Andrew Scheer would have carried the day. But they didn't even have the courage, honesty, transparency, courtesy of letting it come to a vote. It was, and I think I think if all these party members would have lost the vote fair and square, many of them would say, well, that's democracy. You play the rules of the game and you accept if you lose the game. But the fact that the rules themselves were tricked and that there were shenanigans added to that bad faith you were talking about. And I don't know if this is some sort of in-your-face Maxime Bernier. Well, he's gone now. Get that out of your system. How about in-your-face every conservative who's ever believed in some sort of a entrepreneurial free market economy? Is it in their face too? And I was struck by the passion with which grassroots delegates were deeply upset. And I saw some mainstream media journalists ask, why do you really care about this? And a few of them answered very thoughtfully, it's not even really about the dairy cartel. That's a small issue. It's Andrew Scheer who's obsessed with them, not ordinary folks. But this was a symbol of the democratic process within the party, and is the party truly conservative? Andrew Scheer is still reveling in the fact that he's in your face with the dairy cartel, tone deaf.
Well, and I think, too, as conservatives, especially the Conservative Party, they walk around with a sense of moral superiority over the Liberals because we think that we're the party of discussion, we, the conservative movement. But right now, Andrew Scheer took the exact same hard line against discussion about supply management that Justin Trudeau is taking with regard to pro-life MPs. You know, the Liberal Party, it is a firm party line. They can't even have those discussions within the party about being pro-life, or even if, you know, the abortion issue requires a law at some point. They can't even have that discussion. It's completely off limits. And now we know within the Conservative Party, there are issues that will never, ever be discussed. So it's time for them to get off their high horse.
Yeah. there's one more thing, and you and I have talked a lot about it and joked a lot about it, and I put it in my monologue yesterday. Perhaps the goofiest moment. I hadn't yet come into Halifax. You were sitting with some of our rebels at a just outdoor patio right across from the convention center, because of course we're officially banned from entering the building. But everyone was coming and going, and I came later and we said hi to hundreds of people. Hamish Marshall, our former colleague at the Rebel, who is now Andrew Scheer's campaign manager, you guys had a little hi, hello, how are you, how's your kids, like just small talk, whatever, normal. The Globe and Mail called that a top story. That's how it was categorized on their website, and it was hundreds of words. And Sheila Gunn Reid said hi, and Hamish said hi, and he later said that's all they said. Like, it was this insane. It wasn't even grade school gossip stuff. It was so weird, and to me, this was symbolic of the media's obsession with deplatforming the Rebel, and the responses to that by the Conservative Party were even weirder, that they would indulge that conversation as if it was a real conversation. They had talking points to handle the problem that you were caught having a chat with Hamish. The Globe and Mail was kooky, fake news, stupid, weird, gossipy conspiracy theorists. Fine, that's their funeral. But the Conservative Party itself played along with that, and that is what will destroy them in the end. The fact that they allow these gossip girls of the media party to make them afraid of talking to conservatives, not just us, any conservative. That's what's so disappointing about this conference.
Yeah, the Conservative Party has become the enforcers of the media party. When the media party says there are people you cannot talk to, they're glad to oblige, but there was a stark dichotomy between what the official Conservatives here on the ground, how they're treating us in front of the cameras, and also how they're treating us when the cameras are gone. We've both got a lot of friends in the Conservative Party, MPs and otherwise, and they're talking to us. They're shaking our hands. They're saying hi. And also the people who paid out of pocket and made the trip from all across the country to Halifax. We had a packed event last night. Packed event. They all came down and said to us, we are not going to let the media party decide for us, the grassroots members, who we can and can't talk to. And I think that's the real difference. You know,
you're talking about, we had a little get-together at the Prince George Hotel last night. Very nice little hotel. And I'm just going to wait for this noisy truck to pass. We're downtown Halifax. It's still a hustle-bustle even on a Saturday. We had almost 300 people pass through that room. Wow. And it was a small room, but we had a counter. I mean, we were worried about the fire code. It was a great evening, and we had a range of people. I really enjoyed meeting everybody. And I want to say two things about that. First of all, when almost 10,000 party members signed a petition to Andrew Scheer saying, why are you boycotting the Rebel? And when almost 300 delegates come to say hi to the Rebel, that's a disconnect between the leadership and the true will of the party. And the number one question people were saying is, why were you banned again? And I honestly can't even articulate it, because I don't even understand. It's just weird, and it's these little quirks that, everyone's got their quirks, but it's a strange thing for the party to suck up to the dairy cartel, suck up to the media party, and hate not me or you, but a idea vehicle that so many of its own members support. I'm going to give the mic to you for a second, and then I have one more thought about last night's event and how the alt-left tried to block it. But give me your thoughts some more on last night's event.
Last night's event, like you said, it was a real diverse range of people. And they weren't scared of the media party. They didn't understand why we had been blocked. But this is just, I think, it's really symptomatic of what's going on in the Conservative Party. Andrew Scheer had a real chance for reconciliation with Maxime Bernier's people. He had a chance to reconcile with us, and I don't even know what the fight is. Yeah. And instead of doing those things, he's being spiteful and malicious. And I hope Andrew Scheer gets some courage and maybe takes some direction from the people who were brave enough to come to our event last night in the face of an attempt to deplatform us last night.
You know, I've known, I'm old enough to have known a number of leaders of the conservative movement. Preston Manning, cerebral guy, but a bit of a cold fish. I mean, I was a volunteer for him, worked for him in one form or another for a decade, and in that entire period of time, I think I had 2 phone calls from him the whole time that were not about. I mean, he's not a warm, embracing guy, but people followed him because he was the visionary who launched the Reform Party. Stockwell Day, for whom I worked for a brief period of time, was the opposite. He was effusive. He was friendly. He was. He would give you a hug. He would remember your birthday. He would send you a little personal email. It was such an emotionally rewarding relationship. Stephen Harper, I had a range of experiences with him, a bit more of the aloof personality, but underneath it a sense of humor, but mainly smart strategist, tough decision maker, clear vision, executive. You could see why he was a leader. There's a range of different things. The problem with Andrew Scheer is he lacks Stephen Harper's command of the ideology and the philosophy. He lacks Stockwell Day's tremendous warmth and interpersonal connection. He lacked Preston Manning's vision, I think, and decades of connections. So what is Andrew Scheer? Well, the party's still sort of waiting for that. And the weird thing is, as this convention comes to its close, the 2 things that I can say are he loves the dairy cartel and he doesn't like Maxime Bernier. You've got to stand for something, offer something more than that. And the pettiness with which he's dealt with Bernier, who's gone now. You don't have to be petty anymore. He's gone. Bernier's people and also regular conservatives who don't like cartel, that in your face, I'm going to their party. The weird, Stalinist, your unpersoned treatment of the rebel. I'm not sensing what the appeal is here, and I've worked with or for a variety of conservative leaders, each of who have their strengths and weaknesses. I'm still trying to understand who Andrew Scheer is, and maybe the country is too.
Yeah, like you said, we only know that he likes dairy farmers. I'm not convinced that he has a commitment to free market principles. I'm not convinced that he has a commitment to free speech, despite all of his protestations to otherwise. I'm not convinced that he's going to do those things that conservatives like me. I'm cheering for Andrew Scheer. I want him to take on the media party. Everybody we talked to since we got here wants him to take on the media party, and he's scared. He's acting as an enforcer for the media party, and I think in the end that's going to fail him. Yep. He has to gather up all these fractured conservatives and be ecumenical with them, and I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing a lot of spite. Yeah.
I want to say one more thing. I meant to raise this earlier about the Prince George Hotel.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. We met hundreds of people. People stayed late, and it was very exciting. We met people from all across the country. What was fun is that everyone on their badge, their name tag, would have the riding they're from. So I'd say we probably had 75 different ridings represented there last night. It was great. And everyone who attended was in some way defying the party ban on hanging out with a rebel. But I want to talk about one thing not to do with the Conservatives. And when we let it be known that we were having this hospitality suite, the alt-left Antifa types started phoning the hotel, threatening them with economic boycotts, and at least 2 phone calls threatened them with physical violence if they did not cancel our hospitality suite. And by hospitality suite, it was just a fairly small room with a little bar. That's all it was. And the people who were coming were really just delegates to this convention. Severely normal mums and dads from across the country, some young folks too. The hotel was wobbled. They've never seen anything like it. And because they had literally threats of violence phoned in, bomb threat style, terrorist style, 2 Halifax police were stationed there. Now, obviously, these Twitter cowards, keyboard warriors who were talking so tough, including a local NDP politician. Can you believe that?
I can.
So this convention comes to town, and you and I have been criticizing Andrew Scheer and Maxime Bernier, whatever. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the convention. You got thousands of people coming to town, spending probably more than $1 million between hotel and restaurants, the taxis, and like it's a good thing for Halifax. It's a tourist thing. That's what a convention center is for. It's not just a left-wing convention center. It's left-wing, right-wing, no-wing, whatever. Hotels, you can travel here. It doesn't matter who you are. You want to stay in Halifax, you can get a room. This weird leftist deplatforming that Andrew Scheer is mimicking now,
Right.
they 150 bullying phone calls to the hotel, including 2 threats of violence, hundreds of tweets threatening the hotel. And I have to give them huge kudos. They're not conservative. They're not liberal. They're a hotel. We pay them money for a room and drinks. We're customers. We weren't asking them to endorse anything. We say, hey, you got a room to rent? Great. We're in the room renting business. That is super gross. And I was a little surprised they didn't buckle. But I'm not surprised that the alt-left in this country is actually threatening. What is threatening violence if you don't make a political decision? Is that not a definition of terrorism?
It is. But like most leftist cowards, they didn't even show up. Yeah. They didn't even show up. They said that they threatened the hotel with a mob of people coming down there. They were an online mob. But when having to do it to somebody's face, to destroy somebody's business to their face, they can't do it. Yeah. They don't have the guts to do it, much like Andrew Scheer didn't have the guts to talk to us.
Yeah, you know, when I went to deliver the petition yesterday, they didn't even send a junior party staffer. They didn't even send a security guard. They sent a student intern of the convention center. That's a little bit cowardly. It's tough to say something harsh to someone's face. And journalists, we do that sometimes, and it's unusual because normal humans are used to being polite. It was quite cowardly of Antifa. And I would say if anyone's coming to Halifax, left or right, liberal or conservative, you should stay at the Prince George Hotel just to counteract the bullying of the left-wing mob. And as a thank you to them for standing firm. They've never been through that before, and they couldn't understand it. They said, why did this come? Because they saw all our people, friendly folks. There was nothing objectionable whatsoever. They just couldn't understand it because it's not normal what Antifa did. All right, we've been going at it for a while here. I've enjoyed the visit to Halifax. I had 1 or 2 fish cakes. Yeah, I had 4. Well, you know, when you're in Halifax, you're going to have fish cakes. What are you going to do? I mean, you're going to come to Alberta, you have steaks. Let's word to you, Sheila. What's your takeaway from this weekend?
My takeaway from this weekend is, despite the fact that the party itself is fractured, I think people are coalescing around us. I think it's having the exact opposite effect that the mainstream media and their enforcers in the Conservative Party thought their deplatforming of us would have. I think people are coalescing around us, they're supportive of us, and they're happy that we came to tell the other side of the story.
Yeah. Well, in case anyone's wondering what the position of the Rebel is, it's we support conservatives when they're conservative, and we criticize them when they're not. No one has done more to criticize Justin Trudeau in this country than we have. I wrote a book about it called Trumping Trudeau. You wrote a book about various things, whether Rachel Notley, The Destroyers, or the unauthorized biography of David Suzuki. We don't need lessons from anyone in taking on Justin Trudeau. In fact, sort of the opposite. When someone is becoming a Trudeau light and leading a Liberal Party, a Conservative Party, that's where we weigh in. So our job continues, whether or not Andrew Scheer hides from us, and that is to defeat Justin Trudeau, but not just with anyone or anything, with an alternative that's truly conservative. And judging by the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Conservative Party members who came to our event and the nearly 10,000 who signed our petition in 2 days, I think we know our place. I just hope that Andrew Scheer finds his. On behalf of all of us here at the Rebel, and thank you, by the way, to those of you who crowdfunded our flights and our Airbnb rooms. We stayed in an Airbnb to try and save some dough. Thank you for helping fly us out here. I thought it was useful, even though we weren't permitted in the inner sanctum. I think that was a useful lesson in itself. On behalf of us here at the Rebel.media, to you at home, bye-bye, and keep fighting for freedom.